She was staked to the desert floor by the man who called himself her husband. An old cowboy could have ridden past, but instead he laid down his knife and turned his back. One quiet act of respect changed everything she believed about freedom. Hey folks, before we dive into this tale of the Old West, where the sun beats down like a hammer on an anvil, I gotta ask, where are you tuning in from right now? Is it the bustling streets of New York, the quiet hills of the Midwest, or maybe somewhere across the ocean? And what's the time where you are? Early morning coffee hour or late night unwind? If you're enjoying these stories that blend grit and heart, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. It keeps the campfire burning bright. Now, let's ride into it. The sun was a white coin flattened against the sky when Wyatt Harland crested the low ridge and saw her. At first, he thought she was a fallen bundle of cloth, something dark and motionless lying in the buffalo grass. Then the shape moved just enough for him to know it was human, and his stomach went cold. He approached slowly on horseback, reins loose, the way a man approaches something wounded and dangerous. She lay face down, arms stretched forward as if reaching for something forever out of reach. Thick ropes bound her ankles to two old stakes driven deep into the dry earth. The cords had bitten cruelly into her skin. Dark blood had crusted along the grooves. She was tall, even lying there, her length unmistakable. Strongly built, the kind of strength earned from years of hauling water, chopping wood, riding long distances. An Apache woman alone in the middle of nowhere. Wyatt dismounted 20 yards away and walked the rest of the distance, boots crunching softly. The moment his shadow crossed her back, she flinched, a full-body tremor that told him more than words ever could. "No," the word came out hoarse and broken. "It still hurts there." He stopped instantly. He didn't ask what hurt or why she had been staked like an animal. The answer was written in the rope burns, in the smear of dried blood on her thigh, in the way her powerful shoulders trembled from holding herself up under who knows how many hours under the sun. Wyatt was 62 years old, a widower for 15, no children, accustomed to silence. He knew when words were useless. So he said nothing. He unfastened his belt knife, placed it on the ground halfway between them, handle toward her, and stepped back. Then he turned his back completely and stared at the empty horizon, offering the only gift he could think of: privacy. The desert wind moved around him. Behind him he heard the faint scrape of steel against dirt as she picked up the knife, then the labored breathing as she began to cut. Each slice was slow, deliberate. He could hear the fibers separating one by one. When the stakes finally gave way, her body dropped with a soft thud. Still he did not turn. Minutes passed. He heard his canteen being lifted, urgent gulps of water, then slower, grateful swallows. Fabric whispered as she pressed his spare neckerchief against her wound. Only when a freed cough sounded behind him did he turn. She was sitting upright now, back against a pile of dry grass, her legs stretched out like fallen logs. Cloth was tied around her thigh. Her ankles were raw and bleeding, but her chin was high. Those dark eyes studied him without fear now, only caution. Wyatt nodded once. He walked to his horse, loosened the cinch, and dropped the saddle. Then he led the animal closer, reins draped over the horn. An invitation, not an order.
She tested her legs and grimaced. When her knees buckled, he extended an arm, stopping halfway. She considered him, then placed her large hand on his forearm, not gripping, just steadying herself. Together they got her into the saddle. He handed her the reins first, then mounted behind her, keeping a respectful distance. They rode in silence toward the ranch he had worked alone for 3 decades. The small homestead lay in a hollow where the worst winds died against red rock. A weathered house, a corral, a well, nothing fancy but solid. He helped her down the same way, space, patience, no unnecessary touch. He set a basin of water on the porch step, a clean cloth, a tin of ointment. Then he retreated inside to make coffee. For 3 days they shared the house like 2 cautious animals circling the same watering hole. She slept sitting against the wall, barely touching the bowl of stew he left for her. He worked cattle from dawn to dusk, speaking only necessary. More water. The fire's hot. She answered with single words or nods. On the 4th morning, he found him repairing fence and spoke without preamble. It was my husband. Wyatt kept hammering, waiting. A respected man, a warrior, a guardian of tradition. Her voice was low and steady, but every word weighed heavy. He said a strong woman must be taught her place, or she brings shame. The stakes were to remind me whose body this is. She did not cry. She simply stared at the empty distance. I stayed a long time, because leaving meant losing everything: family, people, name. But when my face was in the dirt and the sun burned my back, I understood. If I stayed, I would lose myself. That is worse than losing anything else. Wyatt drove in the last staple and leaned his forearms on the post. You're here now. That's what matters. She studied him for a long time. Why did you help me? He shrugged. Seemed right. It was the closest he came to explaining the emptiness that had lived in his house since his wife died, or the old guilt he carried from a distant winter when he failed to reach a friend in time. Some debts are paid forward. On the 5th day, 3 riders appeared on the ridge, Apache men, faces unreadable. They stopped at a courteous distance and waited. And right here, as the tension builds on that dusty ridge, I pause to check in with you all. Where are you listening to this story from? The comfort of your home in Texas? A commute in London? Or maybe a beach in Australia? What's the time ticking away at your end? High noon or midnight quiet? If this tale of resilience and quiet kindness is hitting home, show some love with a like and subscribe. It helps spread these stories far and wide, just like whispers on the prairie wind. Now, back to those riders. Wyatt stepped onto the porch to meet them. The woman, her name was Jen, stood beside him, spine straight. The leader spoke calmly of order, of shame, of a husband's rights. He did not threaten, he simply reminded. When he finished, the air felt heavier than the noon heat. I will not return, Jen said. The leader's eyes shifted to Wyatt, measuring. This is not your affair, old man. She's injured, Wyatt said evenly. That's all I know. The riders left without argument, but the dust of their horses lingered like a warning. That evening, Jen asked, what happens when they return?
I won't hand you over, but I'm one man with a rifle. I can't fight a nation." She nodded, accepting truth.
Later, by lantern light, Wyatt wrote a short letter in careful handwriting to an army captain he once pulled from a snowdrift 20 years before, a debt remembered. He rode to town under cover of night and sent it. Days passed in uneasy silence. Gien's wounds scabbed over. Strength returned to her legs. She began helping with chores, hauling water, chopping wood, moving with the same pride she had shown even staked in the earth. Then came the morning the whole settlement gathered in the dusty street of Tombstone. The news had spread. Her husband stood in the center, impeccable coat, reasonable voice. He spoke of honor, duty, community peace. Many nodded. Few looked Gien in the eye when she entered the square beside Wyatt. Her husband smiled the smile of a man who believes he has already won. "Come home, wife, all is forgiven." Gien stopped 10 feet away. The crowd held its breath. She took one slow breath. "I am no longer your wife." The words fell clear and final in the hot stillness. "You dishonor us both. I have gone home too many times. This time I choose where my home is." She stepped beside Wyatt, not behind him, shoulders back, chin high. For a heartbeat, her husband's mask slipped, raw anger flashed. Then came the sound of hooves at the edge of the crowd. The marshal rode forward, gray and deliberate. "She has spoken," he said simply. "Here, a person's word still carries weight." No one argued. The crowd parted like grass before wind. Gien and Wyatt rode home without looking back. That night by the fire, Gien said softly, "I slept on my back for the first time in years. No ropes, no fear of footsteps in the wind." Wyatt fed the logs, sending sparks up the chimney. "Good," he said. Weeks became months. The riders never returned. Perhaps the captain's quiet word helped. Perhaps the community grew tired of an old fight. It didn't matter. Gien prepared fences beside him, her long shadow falling across his shorter one. They shared meals without ceremony, sat on the porch in the evenings watching the stars turn. Some nights she spoke of her childhood on the plains. Some nights he spoke of his wife's laughter. Most of the time they were silent, and the silence became comfortable. One spring afternoon, she stood at the corral gate, watching a new foal wobble on thin legs. "I was afraid that if I left, I would be nothing, but I am still myself here, perhaps more myself than before." Wyatt leaned on the railing beside her. "It takes courage to leave everything you know." "It takes courage," she replied, "to let someone walk their own path without trying to own them." He looked at her then, truly looked at her, and saw not the tall Apache woman staked in the dirt, but a woman standing in her own power. The desert is vast and often cruel, but sometimes in the smallest places kindness plants a seed that survives the wind. Two people who had known loss learned that freedom is not only breaking ropes, it is giving another person the space to stand without them. And on that quiet ranch, side by side, they proved that true strength is the strength to let another simply be.